the On the Run with Jess and Tom podcast.
This is Jessica Thacker.
And I'm Tom Conway.
Welcome to the podcast. So today...
Hey, everybody.
Hey. So, this is Valentine's Day weekend.
The month of love.
The
What's
month
happening?
of love.
What is a month of love? What is love in general?
I know. So Tom and I have been asking this question, and we came up with a bunch of different answers because I feel like, to me, love is all.
Sicilian pizza.
That's love. Yeah. Ceviche.
McDonald's breakfast.
Peruvian ceviche is love.
Never. Not
Yes.
today. Sorry, Peru.
Lomo saltado is love.
Yeah, sorry, I agree. That's a warm affection.
Ají de gallina.
Yes.
So, we were talking about trying to define the word love, right? But it's just such a big term, and to me, when I talk about love, the first thing that comes to mind is God. Because I grew up
Just
knowing
one less O. It's one less O.
knowing in my heart that God is love. So where there is love, there is God. So if you do things with love, God is always with you. But that's my personal definition,
Mm-hmm.
So everything I do with love and with God.
Well, what else is there?
What else is there?
What
will be your definition?
Oh, man. What is my definition of love? Action taken on the sole behalf of others.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that. I really like that. That's one of the definitions I heard in one of these retreats I went to, is like when you are genuinely interested in the other's happiness.
Yeah, I think you'd be hard to find love without a level of sacrifice, right? And I know, it's funny because in the past, I think when I was younger, you have these conversations all the time, right? You're in a relationship or not, whatever, but you have these discussions. And I struggle to use the word sacrifice because I feel like when it is love, it isn't really sacrifice, right? It's just an expression of that love. But at the same time, in general, if it's not romantic love, if it's any type of societal love practice, there is an element of you first, right? It's you before me, and so that is sacrificial.
Did you say suicidal? Suicidal?
I said societal, meaning an element of society.
I was like, suicidal.
Actually, suicidal. Actually, I think it has a place in this conversation. I think it does.
If you like it, a ring on it.
Yeah,
the ring on it.
Right.
So, well, we came up with a bunch of different descriptions. So, in these times, let's make pretend we just came from a different planet and we don't know what, we hear everybody talking about love and everybody's raving about it and we are lost. We don't know, what it is. We don't know how to define it. So the first thing we would do, if we already knew technology, I would ask...
How can we know technology not know love?
No, we came to...
That was in the Bible, I think.
When you come to the world, let's say we were aliens, right? We were aliens, and the first thing we know for sure, because this is like the most relevant thing in the world, is technology, right? And then everybody's talking about love, but let's make pretend you don't know how to feel it. Right?
I actually don't know how to feel it. This is great. Thank you.
Okay, so this is for you then.
Yeah, oh my God.
So for those of you who can relate to Thomas, he doesn't know how to feel love. We are going to ask Siri.
No, wait. I'm an Android. I don't trust Siri.
She's already answering me. She's ready.
I'd like to ask Google if you don't mind.
Okay, fine. I'll ask Siri.
Okay.
Hey Siri, what is love?
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
Oof. Wow.
Hey Siri.
Uh-huh.
What is love?
Very polite, Siri.
As I understand it, love refers to a deep, tender, ineffable feeling of affection and solicitude.
I'm going to have to look up whatever solicitude is. I was born in this country. I don't know what that word is.
And
Solicit.
solicited.
Hold on,
So
hold on,
if you're
hold on.
solicited,
Let me write that down.
if you're solicited,
So
you're
so it
available.
was what was it again? Give me it was some ineffable. Ineffable.
I'm gonna have to ask her again.
Hopefully
Hey,
she gives you the
Siri.
same answer.
What is love?
As I understand it, love refers to a deep, tender, ineffable feeling of affection.
Deep,
and
tender,
solicitude.
ineffable feeling of affection. Deep, tender, ineffable feeling of affection. Okay. I feel like that's a really incomplete.
But you don't know how to feel it. How do you know it's incomplete?
Because I think that the definition, it's an ineffable feeling of affection. I think that love could describe other things but affection. But you know how we're going to find that out is we're going to ask Google.
You think Google has a better answer?
I'm not sure.
Um,
Okay, Google. What's love?
Love seems like one of the most important things people can share.
Is that it? I mean, I got two pink hearts. All right, so let's just go with this, right? We can do this.
It's one of the most important
Yeah.
things people can
It-
share.
it's one of the most important things people can share. Just like
That's very broad.
just like tax.
We can share
Tax
boogers.
exemptions, meals. All right. All right. So that's how those are highly incomplete, I guess, definitions of love. And so if we went by these two, now here we are newly indoctrinated into Earth, and we understand now that love is a deep, tender, ineffable feeling of affection, and one of the most important things people can share. Does that work?
I still feel like it's a little incomplete.
All right. So what do you think? Tell me what you think, because you were to that
I feel
thing. You got a
yes.
definition from
I mean,
somebody.
I do feel like it is a thing, the most important thing people can share, for sure,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Because when you share that and when you allow yourself to feel it, you actually put yourself to the service of the other person, right? And you put kind of their needs before yours
Mm-hmm. Which is
in a
great.
lot of cases.
Yeah,
right?
which is great, assuming that what you're actually feeling is love, and that it's a healthy love.
And how do we know it's a healthy love? How do we get to that conclusion?
I tried to ask Google.
Ask that.
Oh,
We didn't ask that.
That's true. Are we really giving Google a second shot at this? Hang on.
And then we can ask Siri.
Okay, Google. What is a healthy love?
According to New York State, healthy relationships involve honesty, trust, respect, and open communication between partners, and they take effort and compromise from both people. There is no imbalance of power.
All right, so
I like that.
all right, no offense here, but they said according to New York State. And I mean, at risk of
I don't know about
risk
the
of
other states.
doing myself personal harm, I'm not exactly in agreement with how New York State feels about most things, and so that's kind of scary.
But I actually like that definition. Let's assume that's according to what the
All right,
world
actually, this is pretty good. I'm gonna read
says.
it. I don't know if everyone heard that because half of it was missing. So it says, healthy relationships involve honesty, trust, respect, open communication between partners, and they take effort and compromise from both people. There is no imbalance of power. Partners respect each other's independence, can make their own decisions without fear of retribution or retaliation, and share decisions. That's actually pretty good, I think, right? That's huge.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
huge.
that's what we like. Every relationship strives for, right? That's what we would like to see in every relationship. Not only with our partners, but with our children. With our parents, with our colleagues, with our co-workers, right?
Mhm. Yeah. There's a lot of elements that are applicable to any relationship you'd want.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, where there's like I was saying in the previous podcast, where there's honesty, where there is communication,
Mhm.
and there's a balance where where we allowed each other to be who we really are. I feel like that's a healthy relationship,
Mhm.
right? So
Yeah.
let's ask Siri.
Oh boy.
Hey Siri, what is a healthy relationship?
I found this on the web.
Can you read it for me?
It's not too much
Here's what I
trouble.
found.
Oh,
She
Siri.
doesn't want to read it for me.
Siri.
Siri.
It's not copy.
Google has 1 point on top of you now.
Sorry, Apple.
Okay, Siri. Hey Siri. What is a healthy relationship?
A healthy relationship is one in which there is honesty, trust, respect, and open communication between partners. This is from DianaServices.org.
Oh, I guess they agree on this one.
Yeah. Yeah.
They do agree on this one.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that's universal, huh?
Well, I mean, in terms of .orgs seem to agree. Yeah. .govs
What
and
about
.orgs.
what about the .coms?
Yeah, or the .coms.
Or the .arts?
Yeah. I mean,
Or the .nets?
I mean, I think that these are reasonable definitions of love.
Yeah. And what happened when you feel love?
I run. I run. Yeah, I leave.
Is that what you do?
No. No, that's
Oh,
not bad.
interesting.
Oh, come on.
I need to take notes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You should take notes.
yeah,
They're important.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, let me ask Siri, what does love feel like?
Well, that's interesting.
Hey Siri, what does love feel like?
Love is a variety of strong and positive emotional and mental states. It can encompass a range of emotions, such as care, closeness, protectiveness, attraction, affection, and trust. Love can vary in intensity and can change over time. It is associated with a range of positive emotions, including happiness, excitement, life satisfaction, and euphoria. But it can also result in negative emotions, such as jealousy and stress. This answer is from Wikipedia and verywellmind.com.
Mm. I mean, it doesn't sound that great based on that.
Well, the first feelings I liked.
Yeah.
The second ones, I guess, sometimes are inevitable, right? When
I hope not.
Well, sometimes, sometimes when you are really in love, certain things are gonna get you a certain way.
It sounded like the first half of that was like date 1 through 3, and then the second half of that was like the rest of your relationship.
What was the other negative thing she said? Besides jealousy.
I don't know. Yeah.
You remember?
No, but it was equally as horrific.
Yeah, well, like everything in life, right? There's like the book we're reading, there's a yin and the yang, the chaos and the order.
Yeah, 100%.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's only natural, for it to be the light and darkness.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like even love could have a little bit of that when we still let ourselves be driven by the ego, by the ego mind, kind of.
I mean, ego mind, yeah, but again, like everything else in life, I mean, I think we touched on this in last week's podcast. You only know what you know, right? I mean, and so you only know what you've been shown to a degree. If you had, 2 parents in the home, that was your first witnessing of love. That was what you based your idea of a healthy love on. That's what felt comfortable to you, and that's what you would innately seek out, unless it was informed to you otherwise that it was not healthy. And you'd still probably have an aspect of yourself that sought that as a place of comfort, unless you got some kind of corrective therapy or something.
Yeah.
Right. And so you can't just go by that. I mean, we only know what we know. And so I grew up in a house with 2 parents. I believe they loved each other, and we assumed they loved each other. They stayed married. They were, I can't say they were happy. I think they were happy. I think that, like every other long-term relationship, that there's ups and downs, there's fights, there's things like that. But I mean, there was never any kind of like violence in our home or anything else like that. I mean, our parents, they would seem to have had a marriage that was very typical of, I grew up in the 70s, and so they were married in the early 60s, and I think that they would have had, it seemed to be the type of marriage that would have been very typical of the time, and again, when I say typical, I mean of other friends my age, and that I knew and went to school with, and even television, like what it like kind of lined up. You know what I mean? I didn't see anything out of the ordinary.
It was the norm.
In our home, but then again, you also wouldn't really know, right? Because your norm is your norm.
Yeah, that's the norm.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, to me, I guess the definition of love was a little screwy to me
Mhm.
because I did grow up in a violent environment, right?
Mhm.
And so relationships for me were always a synonym. How do you say this word?
Synonymous.
Synonymous
Mhm.
of chaos
Mm-hmm.
and mistrust, and pain,
Mhm.
and that and just there were moments where you were being taken care of, but at the same time you were being punished,
Mhm.
and you were being victimized.
Mhm.
So I guess when you grow up with that mentality and where you associate love with violence, and it takes a long time to get rid of that pattern,
Sure. Yep.
and so all your relationships, everything that, unless you get rid of the pattern early enough, right?
Mhm.
All your relationships become that because you're very comfortable with that description of love, with that story you were told. This is
Yeah.
love. This is the only thing you know, and this is where you're comfortable,
Yeah,
even though it's not
And
comfortable.
as perverse as that might be,
Hmm.
that becomes the definition.
Yeah, yeah, and you cannot find any other way to love
Mhm.
that in chaos, that in pain.
Yeah.
Right? And then I guess when you do the work, when you start working on your own healing and things like that, and then you realize that there's a different way. There is a healthy way. There is a way where you realize that you are the servant of all these good things Siri told at first, right?
Mhm.
You are deserving of compassion. You are deserving of honesty. You are deserving of trust. You are deserving of acceptance.
Mhm.
Which were the things you never had, but now you understand that you, as well as everybody else, are deserving, right? So you start shifting your mentality, and then you start attracting different things because now you feel like you're deserving, right? And that you can live the kind of love that is well received, right?
Yeah. I mean, I always have to question everything. I think that, well, okay, not everybody, but many people, and I love the many people because it doesn't really encompass any specific group, but they they walk around believing they deserve it, so to speak. They believe whatever they believe love is, right? And so they already have the definition of what they think how love is demonstrated, and they do believe they deserve that. But they may be a terrible partner, right?
Mm-hmm.
They might be a completely inwardly focused, me. I know of a lot of imbalanced relationships that way, where one of the two in the couple is certainly the more expressive, more I don't want to say dominant because it's not dominance, but their expression of love is definitely the predominant theme in the relationship, and that other individual is very happy to believe and be deserving of that with not all that much output, and so depending on, so like a lot of people are just born givers, right? For whatever reason they've had growing up, you know what I mean? Like, we've had our stories and stuff like that, and so um, you believe you have to give, to validate yourself, or to
Yeah.
or to be to be wanted, to be loved, to be had around, or welcome, and so you do that going into a relationship. And so if you meet the person who believes that they need to receive it
Takers.
right, that's going to be a balance that will work for
For
a
a
period
while.
of time, and depending what other elements are in the relationship, what other external forms of entertainment are in the relationship. Like, let's say that's a marriage, but my wife doesn't mind. I go golfing 4 times a week and whatever, and so it kind of works for us. The love might not be that healthy, but we have figured out a way to support the relationship, infrastructure externally, and then maybe, the female, whatever, the roles aren't important, the wife, the husband, whatever, it could be either, but you know what I'm saying? Where
Yeah.
other things are kind of propping that relationship up,
Yeah, I mean, we all bring to our relationships what we grew up with. Whatever our own limitations are or our own strengths, right? We bring all that we are or that the ego might make you believe you are.
Yeah.
We bring that to the relationship, right? And sometimes, and this has happened to me, in a couple of occasions where, I have done everything for love, right?
Mm-hmm.
For the love of the other person.
Yeah.
Because
you mean in order to
in order to
for
be
them
loved.
to give it to you,
In order to be
receive it.
loved, right? Because, and I remember, like, I would do anything and everything, right? Because I wanted to be loved.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the wrong reason. That is,
sure. It's of course.
I mean, if you wanted to give everything, it's because you already have everything, and you have given yourself everything in order for you to be able to give some, But if you're giving your everything, what is there left for you? Right?
Yeah. Well, again, if you are, so it definitely doesn't keep score, right? That's one of the fundamental elements of love, right? It doesn't keep score. I think that's in something somewhere. I think, I don't know if that was in Corinthians or what, but so it doesn't keep score. And so in theory, if both parties in love were completely outbound and very giving to the other, there would be an even exchange, and either party would be nourished by the other, and that would be balance, and so that would work. We know that's not the case either, but you kind of covered both pieces of the spectrum, right? Because pardon me. You said before that you have to believe you're deserving of love, and then you went on to say how you did all those things to receive love, and that's
Right,
the same reason, because you weren't. You
wasn't in that
believe
place.
somehow that you
Mhm.
deserved it, And I mean, we've obviously we talk about this stuff regularly. I mean, I was 5 of 7 children. I never felt like I had enough, of my mother, for whatever reason, and I didn't really know that, And so I think that I always had that feeling of, I don't know necessarily if rejection is the word, but definitely a void there, and it took me a really long time. It took me, I mean, it still is taking me right into just very recently to realize that there was always a really unhealthy element to the way I expressed love, and what I looked for in it. And I also had a lot of really, I guess, for lack of a better word, negative feelings towards my mom, and it wasn't really until, I'd say the last, 5-6 years or a little more after, I went through what I went through relationship-wise and, marriage-wise and all that kind of stuff, where I saw things a different way. And it's really, it's almost similar to what we did in the 30-Day Miracle, when we were able to, the quantum meditation. So you go back and you revisit those things that formed your opinion early on, and then you put them in a different context. And my context, was changed, in just with a maturity, right, which you didn't have as a younger person. Say, wow, my mom was a mother of 7 children. My mother did all the laundry. I mean, none of us were a huge help around the house. So my mother was doing all the meals. She was doing all the laundry. The woman was exhausted, and now in her late 80s, she's still that person. She still calls and looks for us. I haven't heard from you. How are you? Is everything okay? Did you do this? Looking out for my children, looking out for the grandkids. And she's still doing that job now. And, when I realized that my mother, who lost her father at an early age, also grew up with her own, her own voids, right? And so it just took a little bit of maturity, and unfortunately took me into my 40s, I think, before I really had an appreciation. And it wasn't until after I had children that I realized, how sacrificial that is in and of itself. And I was very lucky to have the parents that I had. Certainly not, nothing's ideal, right? But I mean, they were very, very sacrificial. They put themselves, last. They took care of us all. And so, but that, again, I had already made many relationship mistakes, gotten through a divorce, heading towards before I really was able to understand, look at what's made, look what created this feeling in you, and it's incorrect, and then I felt like I owed my mother a tremendous apology, and we did have a conversation at one point, which was, meaningful.
Yeah, I feel like our perception as children, like I remember when we were watching that movie with that Gabor Mater
Gabamate, yeah.
Gabor Mater movie about traumatic experiences, right?
Mhm.
And how that lack of connection, that lack of just the fact that they were so involved with their own lives, with their own responsibilities. In my mother's case, was with her own drama,
Mhm.
with her own pain.
Yeah.
That she didn't really have the time to even look at me, and I
Mhm.
took that as being rejection, right? I took that as me being rejected, me being invisible, me not having a voice, right?
Yeah.
And that perception made me the person I was for a long time, right? Made me that needy person that where I was in a relationship, I needed that attention.
I'm so glad that you've gotten through that.
I'm not all that over that yet. But at the same time, I feel like it was just so much, so much that I saw growing up that it made me become this person who was never satisfied. This
Mhm.
person who, and like another thing that really marked me, was the fact that she never really worked, right? And she didn't go to school, and she would,
Mm.
and of course she, I don't know if she did it on purpose, but she told us that it was because of us that she couldn't, she didn't fly as
Mhm.
high as she
Mhm.
would have wanted to, right?
Sure. Mhm.
So in my experience, I was, I told myself I was never gonna let that happen, right? I was never gonna depend on a man. So I decided to be the man. I decided to be the masculine.
Really awkward.
Yeah, I decided to be the masculine energy in my life. I let the masculine energy rule my life because I wanted to be in charge of my own finances. I wanted to be in charge of, like, every time I came into a relationship, I never let anyone take care of me because I was, too proud. I was too enough. But at the same time, I needed the attention. So it was a contradiction.
Mhm.
It was very contradictive.
Well, you need the attention, but you may not have wanted the vulnerability that comes along with it.
Mm.
Because with that as well, let's say, you turn the keys over to somebody and they disappoint you. And then you have that again, you're crestfallen, you disappointed, there could be an element of rejection in there too, because it's like, oh, you couldn't do this for me. Like, how many times you hear that,
Yeah.
in young couples? It's like, you couldn't even do this for me, and it's like, yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it is tough, and well, this time around, I'm like, I think it's time to embrace that feminine energy and say, you know what, I am allowing myself to be taken care of.
My feminine energy is having a great time.
Well, I'm just saying, I'm allowing myself to be taken care of this time around. It's just, it's a different perspective.
Great.
I hung up my cojones.
Mm-hmm. Great. That's good news.
Yeah. So, do you want to ask Google what does love feel like?
Yeah, sure. Okay, Google. What does love feel like?
Love seems like one of the most important things people can share.
That's all Google knows how to
That's
say.
that same BS remark that Google gave us earlier. How have you become this large of a company, Google, if you can't think more thoroughly than this? And now you have BART, they have AI, and this is still the best that they can do. This is pretty sick.
You want to ask the question again, maybe? Give Google another chance.
That in itself is like an expression of love, isn't it? That's
Yes.
nice. Second chances, okay.
Yeah.
Sure. What does love feel like?
subjective self-contained phenomenal experiences. According to the Oxford Dictionary of Psychology, a feeling is a self-contained phenomenal experience, and feelings are subjective, evaluated, and independent of the sensations, thoughts, or images evoking them. The term feeling is closely related to, but not the same as emotion.
Google, I think you have a problem getting the ladies.
Okay, one more time. One more chance, Google. One more chance.
I mean,
Siri got it right the first time. Just so you know.
what does love feel like?
According to Wikipedia, feelings are subjective self.
You know what? This is the problem with relationships, Google. I don't want to know what Wikipedia thinks. I want to know what you think. And if you care about me, you're going to tell me right now what you think.
Subjective, evaluated.
I love.
I'm going to the Apple Store. How about that?
The term feeling is
Okay, Google, bye.
but not the
I'm
same
sorry,
as
but
emotion.
You failed.
It's funny because sometimes when I'm at his house and I'm talking, sometimes Google doesn't want anything to do with him. And when I talk to her, she
It's not
actually
her.
listens to
Google
me.
is a male.
No,
Google is a
I
male.
like to think she's a female
Well, you're
because she
incorrect.
talks like a female.
Well, you know what? She identifies as a male.
Why do you use a feminine voice for her then?
What?
Why do you use a feminine voice for her?
It's a gender neutral voice.
Okay.
That voice doesn't make her a male or a female. It's just a gender neutral.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
I'm not here to judge. Fine.
It's okay.
When he wants to talk to his Google, and he doesn't want to
No,
listen to him,
Google and I will speak in private.
when I give Google directions, he actually understands my
Mm-hmm.
accent.
Yeah.
He actually understands my accent.
Right.
So that's good news.
Google isn't from Long Island.
Maybe
New York.
maybe your Google is peruano.
Google is not from New York.
Maybe your Google is
No,
peruano.
no, it isn't.
So when you say you never felt love,
I don't think I said that. I
You
said
say-
never fell love.
so you don't feel love.
I don't have emotions. I think we talked about this several times. There's certain areas of my brain that has been atrophied. And so-
Yeah, but you don't need your brain to feel. You just need your heart.
Oh boy. Guess you never been to medical school.
So you just don't want to allow your heart to feel.
Actually, so what's next? What's the next topic?
You're the one who brought it out.
Mm-hmm.
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 Yeah. So is there anything else you want to ask Google?
Not really. I mean, with that track record, I don't trust Google's judgment. I feel like Google may take us both down the wrong road. You know?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, it is interesting, to see the role we take because of the way we perceive love growing up and the way we learn about love as adults, and the way we understand it a little better when we become parents.
Mhm.
I think everything changes, right?
Oh, yeah,
and like
definitely.
when you think about the way you perceive being loved growing up, which in most cases, and if you ask our children, they'll say the same thing. They always need it and they never get enough, right? And that's the way. I mean, that's the way I feel. Like I was never there enough for them.
Oh, you mean as a parent, you feel like you could never give them enough.
No, I feel like they feel like.
But
For
why
some
do you
reason-
feel like? Is that a conversation you had?
I feel like
Because this is.
I could have done a better job.
Yeah, of course. I think everyone, if you're any kind of thinking person, you should always be able to see areas in which you could perform better, right? I mean, nobody knows how to do it out of the gate. Even if you grew up in a healthy family, you're just not. You're not an expert. You can only give what you have to people. And especially if you had what you had growing up, you could have be trying to compensate for that, and that's, I think actually our generation of parents has screwed stuff up royally like that, because there's just too many yeses, there's too much pandering, there's too much like, what, honey, and it's that's because of your own void, where it's like, oh, I don't want these kids to experience just a moment of any kind of discomfort, and we're raising a generation of kids that aren't seaworthy, and then that's evident what's going on right now. Different topic, but we do that another time.
No, I know. We have brought our limitations to our own families, and like you said, the void we had growing up had made us be these people, right? Be so
The void or not, the people that, again, I always go to the other side of this. I mean, there's people that grew up in healthy homes that bring that, their perception of that home. That's the other thing too. Like, keep in mind what you believe you lived in. That's probably arguable, right? I mean, I'm sure your mom has a different idea of it than you do, and your brother probably has a different idea of it than you do, or maybe not. And it's the same thing. Just you shouldn't really, unless you sit down with your children and ask them how they feel about their childhood, where they felt things could have been better or worse, or their time with you and all that kind of stuff, and actually ask those questions and get answers to those questions. I think it's dangerous to assume. I don't think you should assume. Because I don't.
No, I don't. I have had conversations with them, and I know, some of my decisions have made them feel certain ways,
Of course.
and they've had their own perceptions of who I was supposed to be when I couldn't be that person.
Well, we all do of our
Yeah.
parents,
Mhm.
right? I mean, we all have an idea. I mean, listen, I was probably, I don't know what age, late teens, I'd say, by the time I figured out my dad was human. Like, I grew up and my dad was always my hero. As deeply flawed of a guy as he was, and he certainly was. But I adored my father. I loved him. My mother would, tell the story of how he used to sit outside the bathroom door waiting for him to finish. And she has a picture of me at like 4 or 5 years old, like sitting outside the bathroom door waiting for my dad to come out. I mean, I adored him. But, at some point, you're exposed to the human being, and you have the ability to discern, what you, good behavior from bad behavior. And I realized that my dad made mistakes too. And, it probably hurt for a moment. And then I felt like I loved him more because of that, because I felt like that was we had made a true connection.
Yeah.
And so, I think, listen, our expectations of who our parents should be are very unfair a lot, and that's why the journey through parenthood is so critical, because you turn around and you realize, you're like, wow, I had no right to expect that of them,
And you only realize that part when you actually go through the same experiences.
Mhm.
And you are able to make your own mistakes
Yeah.
and say,
I mean, aside from, listen,
Yeah.
safety and security and the things that every child deserves and needs, and the expectation for those things is proper, what I
Yeah.
mean? But outside of that, I mean, like whatever expectations you had for your parents, that they were never going to make a mistake, or never going to disappoint you, or whatever. Like, I think the best things your parents can do sometimes is disappoint you and get it out of the way, because people disappoint you. We are imperfect, and the sooner you suffer that disappointment, the better off you are, because that happens a lot. Like, one of my siblings, I think was really, it was much harder on her, later on in my dad's life, what he went through with his health and stuff like that, and even leaving and passing away. I just think that for her, it was a much steeper decline, because she had held my dad in that like superpower status,
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Dynamics, family dynamics are, make you who you are.
Mhm.
And then it just takes the adult in you to go back and rewrite those stories that might have hurt you in the moment, right? Or, like you said, rewriting that stories that you might have told yourself
Yeah, I
about
think for me,
the reality,
that's the case,
right?
more than anything. I mean, listen, I think for that, I think when you go back and you, with context, you know, and you certainly should not deceive yourself into the context of things, but you know, even if the situation was really terrible, right, and you were neglected and you were whatever, which I don't feel I was, I'm just, if a person has had that experience, you can still give your parent grace, understanding, you know, whatever situation they might have been in, because healthy people don't do that, right? I mean, in theory, I mean, I think the word healthy was in one of our questions and one of our answers here. In theory, the healthy heart, mind, and soul loves purely. They love in a healthy way, right? And they share genuine love, which is, you know, infallible. And so it is, you know, the injured person has to be. You have to acknowledge that, and thank them for, you know, the injury, so to speak, right? Because it did teach you something. Hopefully, you learned from it. It did, you know, strengthen you, you know, somehow. And again, and then at the same time, you have to, you know, let yourself off the hook too. You know what I mean? And just, this is it. This is your story. You know, and whatever your parents' situation was, I'm sure they did the best that they could do at that time, the best that they were able to, because it's only in you know, a biological instinct to care for your young. Right, it is, and so I am sure that they brought every tool they had at the time. Maybe they didn't have many to work with. You know what I mean? And so that's the story. You know.
Yeah, it is important to make peace with the past. You know, with the stories, with the events. You know, and realize that, like you said, you know, if there were harsh things, you know, you have to realize that like I was hurt, you know, they were hurt as well. So it's like
broken people
it comes from that brokenness, right? It comes from that place of being hopeless. You know, that you lose track, you lose, you know, you lose your place, kind of. You know, you lose your identity, you lose your role. You know, and you just become a zombie sometimes. You know, when you're in that kind of pain, you just cannot be present for anyone. You know, and I understand that. I understand that, and I don't put the blame on anybody. You know, like the first book we were reading. You know, I'm taking responsibility for the changes I need to make.
Right.
You know, and I'm not blaming anyone. I'm just, you know, I see whatever I went through with compassion for them and for myself.
Good.
Right, and I think that's what it takes to make that shift, you know.
That sounds like love to me.
Yeah.
I think that's what love is.
Yeah, when you're compassionate to others and to yourself, but you have to be compassionate to yourself, you know, in order for you to bring that peace, for you to forgive, you know. And try to become a better person for those who still love you, you know.
Yeah. Better person. It's probably another episode. What's a better person? What's a good person? You know.
Well, you know, those who do real good for good reasons, you know, genuine connections. You know.
But even isn't good for any reason good?
Yeah. It is good.
I agree.
What's the definition?
Even if you had a bad reason to do good, I'd still want you to do it.
Yeah. So what's good for you? What's the definition of good?
A good person? I mean, because we're all human, I don't believe there is such a thing. Other people would argue the opposite, that we're all good. And I think that at some level, you're serving your needs, right? And hopefully in doing so, that manifests into the benefit of other people. I mean, I think I would have a hard time identifying really a bad person or a good person, because I know so many people, and I don't know which bucket I go in, good or bad person, but I've done terrible things to people I love, you know, and vice versa. And so, you can't, good people sometimes do terrible things, and other people that are classified as terrible can be compassionate or in certain moments, and so I wouldn't know how to define a good person. I think that if you're a person who's introspective and you seek to improve based on a generally recognized standard of ethics and morality, then you would be closer to being put in the good bucket than the bad bucket. That's how I
That's
see
a
it.
different perspective. To me, I think we were all created good. We all feel that compassion in our heart. We do behave badly many times,
Mhm.
but that doesn't define who we are. We were created perfectly to be good souls. We are good souls. But sometimes we get lost when we lose our connection to that bigger source,
Mhm.
with that bigger source of love. When we lose that connection, and when we are in separation or desperation, we become someone who we are not. But our essence, our soul, our spirit is good.
That might be, but to me, as soon as you drop that essence into one of these meat suits, game changes.
Yeah, but
Because
it's up to us.
your soul interfaces with this physical world, with this, and so there's a lot of you use the word filters, I think, but there's a lot of things between the perfection of your soul and the imperfection of the ego. Lots of things.
Yeah, but that's why we are trying to connect ourselves with that power of love with God, so we can be in that perpetual connection. Not because you only do those things or behave in that manner when you're disconnected, when you are out of touch, and if I'm not mistaken, we're trying to be in touch, right? If we are in touch, then we should be doing good things.
I mean, that's what I said earlier. If you're a person who's pursuing an agreed upon standard of moral and ethical behavior, if you're pursuing it, right, not necessarily attaining it, but if you're working towards that, if you're a person who's, analyzes the self and can, with humility, identify the areas you fall short in, and you seek to improve those things, you would be closer to being in the good bucket. That's what I said. And so that's fine, but, doesn't change my overall concept of things. What do I say every time I say, oh, he's a good guy? I say, we're all good guys. Everybody's a good guy. He's a good guy, great guy, terrific guy.
So you feel like the nature of human existence is not good?
I
Or
think
physical
that most
existence?
expressions of humanity tend to be negative comparative to the spirit.
But we are spirit.
So, I mean, then I'm the first person I think I began the conversation saying that I've done terrible things, I don't consider myself to be a terrible person, but I've certainly done things that aren't, nice, kind, proper, so that's what I base that on. I don't define myself by those things, like I said, good people do bad things, because we're human, and so we do things that aren't very nice.
Yeah. I guess I was too afraid of, growing up, I was so afraid of being punished that
I was too.
I never allowed myself
Sure.
to do like,
corporal punishment growing up. And
I never really allowed myself to do like,
I'm not talking about heinous crimes here.
no, I'm not, like,
Hey,
no,
we're good.
I didn't allow myself to do like the wrong thing because I always felt like I was gonna burn in hell,
Mhm.
so I rather run away.
I felt like I'd be on the back of a very long line getting in. I figured I had some time.
Yeah, so, yeah, that's our talk on love.
Wow, I mean, it took a turn there at the end. You know what I mean? Wow, it got awful, didn't it? But I mean, on a much lighter note, I mean, I think we should celebrate our first episode in the new studio
Mm-hmm.
here,
Mm-hmm.
and it's nice to be here in this environment, our own little dedicated space, and producing this content. So that was fun.
Yeah, it's nice.
It's
It
fun.
is nice. Thank you
Yeah.
for putting the work.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I had to.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah. So, anything else that you want to ask?
No, ask? No, I don't ask anything. You know what happens? As soon as you ask something, someone tells you something. You know?
You don't want to hear it?
No, I mean, probably not a good idea. They always say don't ever ask a question that you don't want the answer to. Right?
Mm.
It's good. It was so good.
Mm-hmm.
Really good. Okay.
Yeah,
That's all we got.
that's all we
That's
got.
Goodbye, everyone.
I hope you guys enjoy your Valentine's Day weekend or week or whatever is coming. And I hope you find loving and beautiful people around you, beautiful
If
souls.
you don't, it's okay. It's okay if you don't.
Well, enjoy your week, and we will see you sometime.